We're well past reasonable doubt in this story, but well into what is a reasonable question. What was the motive? Is he going to provide a motive? How did he know the victims? How did he find the home? What is the connection if no connection was available? Was this completely random? Is he some sort of budding SK? Or was this particular crime personal? The original idea was we'll never get these answers until he decides to give those answers because it didn't come to us in the last hearing. But there might be an explanation to this, and he may very well have to give one if he wants this plea deal to go through. All that being said, everything's alleged. Welcome to the point. Let's get to it.
Matt, tell me, as we look ahead to when he's going to be sentenced, give us the date, please, and what exactly we can expect to happen when that hearing rolls around.
Yeah, so I have to let you know that I cannot hear you, but I think that you asked me what's next. So we head now to the sentencing phase, which is scheduled for later this month on July 23rd at the courthouse here behind me. It's going to be another emotional and very busy day. Bryan Kohberger will no longer be allowed to wear street clothes now that he's no longer cloaked in the presumption of innocence.
White Hyundai Elantra.
The trial has now been vacated here. And it's going to be a long day with those victims and their families being able to make those victim impact statements. We're going to hear from each of the family members on the 23rd. And then, you know, it'll be up to Kohberger if we're going to actually be able to hear more from him and the motive behind these cases, and if he has anything to say to the court. But the sentence is already on the table, which is only going to be those life sentences, consecutive, one after the other, along with the 10 years plus for the burglary charge. The judge made it very clear that he cannot bring back the penalty, and that the only thing that he can do within the law, within the Idaho state legislature, is do a downward departure. So, you know, a lot of people upset about that, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it, but we're looking at just him serving life behind bars without the possibility of parole. He saves his own life after admitting to for others.
And legitimately, I have mixed feelings about it. I don't necessarily think that's right. But we're fair on this channel, and as fair as I can be, and all I can say is I'm not the individual who determines that. It was the prosecutor in Latah who decided this was the best option for him, this was the best option for the community, and this was the best decision for the families. They did make it into my last video, but it's fair to say right now that was a tough situation to be in. Whether I agree or disagree, there wasn't a consensus with anyone. Half the family wanted it, half the family didn't, half the people wanted the DP, the other half didn't. The only good so far that we know of is we know who committed this crime because he confessed to this crime. And to clarify what I had said in my last video when I said he wasn't under duress, a lot of people were saying, how do I know you don't know the individual? Here's an example of what I consider to be under duress. This is Richard Allen before he was arrested. Now this is Richard Allen while he was doing the confession. This is Bryan Kohberger then, this is Bryan Kohberger now. Honestly, you tell me what individual was under duress. And there's a huge difference between what an individual can do in jail versus what an individual can do in prison. So I do believe that example kind of lays out where I'm coming from. No, I don't know the guy. I don't presume to know the guy, but y'all don't know the guy either. All we have at the end of the day is his own words based off him saying, these are my words, this is what I'm confessing to, nobody's making me do it. But there are still questions out there. There are still reasonable questions out there, and it's fair to have those questions until we have answers.
Matt Johnson, live for us there outside of the courthouse in Idaho. Thank you so much for that early update, even though you can't hear me. Thank you. Perhaps you can see me in your monitor. We appreciate you. We'll talk more later. I want to bring in now our legal analyst guest. He's a very high-profile criminal defense attorney. He also served as a prosecutor. Attorney Michael J. Brown is joining us live from New York. Michael, good morning to you. I want to ask you about the point that Matt Johnson just raised, something that I'm hearing a lot of people talk about. Yesterday was very unsatisfying, as you know, for the victims' families. They wanted to understand why. They wanted to understand more about how this happened and whether it was planned for years, for months, for, you know, whatever the case may be. And he didn't talk. And so that raises an important legal question, as you know. Do you think prosecutors could have done any more in the negotiation of this plea agreement to make him offer up some more details about what he did?
Well, you know, Julie, good morning. They could have done potentially a proffer in exchange for this promise of not seeking the penalty before they actually walked into the court. and finalize the actual disposition. And they could have had these conversations in their office with some type of agreement in place. It's unusual, and I think if anything is going to happen in terms of these answers that I know the victims' families are really interested in hearing, that could happen at the sentencing part of it. And keep in mind, I know here in New York, we have what's called a pre-sentence investigation.
They have that in Idaho as well,
where they get into the details with the defendant, and that report is issued to the judge. And I'm sure Idaho has a very similar type of situation. That report could very well contain the information that we're talking about. I don't expect Kohberger himself, though, to give up that at the time of sentencing.
And here's how I'm feeling about the situation so far. As of now, given how all this is played out, it seems to me he's wanting to hold on to as much information as possible. I have a strong belief that him having the cards or having the information everybody wants gives him the power, it gives him the control. The general population not knowing the why or the how will continue to make him relevant until we get that information. Idaho does have it where an individual, before they get sentenced, has to sit down and give all these answers in a situation where there may be a parole in the future. The only question mark I have right now is while Idaho does have just what New York has, like this guy was saying, does him not having parole or any chance of parole wipe that off the table? And if that wipes that off the table, was that his plan the whole time? I mean, just take the DP off the table so I can sit here and keep all the information and hold all the cards. I'll be able to string y'all along for however long I want to string y'all along just to make myself relevant. I mean, this is the problem we have when we don't have any answers. How did he know those victims? Was it at the Mad Greek? That seems to be a long-running idea that he met those individuals at the Mad Greek, even though the defense said there is no connection between Bryan and the victims. And that statement was backed up by the prosecution as well. A lot of us are having a hard time wrapping our head around the idea that this was completely random. For a completely random attack like this, it would have to be 1 in a million. And if it was 1 in a million and this was completely random, he just decided to pick a home after scouting homes in the area, then does that make him a budding SK, so to speak? I mean, we got a whole lot of questions, very little answers, and hopefully we'll get some in the future.
Interesting point, Michael. So let's talk about that more. So we know that he's waiving all his rights to appeal anything. So that removes the danger of, oh gosh, what if I say something at sentencing? We often run into that with defendants. We talk about it all the time here. Oh, they don't want to say anything or even apologize because that would be admitting guilt. They're looking at taking an appeal. Here, wouldn't affect him legally. Tell me why you think he may not offer anything up.
Yeah, you're exactly on point, Julie. You know, if you go to trial and get convicted, you have to be cautious because on appeal now, if you at sentencing admitted to all your guilt, it kind of kills the issue. Here it's a negotiated plea, so he did waive his right to appeal. It's all done. He can certainly be frank. Why don't I think it will happen? We followed this case from the beginning, and I know you've been on top of this. He seems very diabolical. I can't imagine him coming into a courtroom and talking and professing his remorse and giving it all up. He just doesn't strike me as that type of individual. And it goes hand in hand with the heinous nature of the form. So although I don't know him from a hole in the wall, just watching him over the last course of the year or two, I doubt that that's going to happen, unfortunately.
That's such excellent analysis, Michael. You're right. Very observant. We've seen his behavior. We've had psychology experts coming on who've told us the behavior seems sociopathic. And watching him yesterday pretty much confirmed that for me. I'm sure for many others, that the way he just very calmly, yes, yes, no emotion, not a tear, not an I'm sorry, nothing from him. Sounds about right. Michael, I want to show you a statement from Kaylee Goncalves' family members. This is heartbreaking. They said the plea began with the defendant claiming responsibility for his actions with one-word responses. All were sufficient for the court and the prosecution team, because that is what this plea was about today, the court and the prosecution. This plea did not represent the victims' families. It represented an easy way out and no answers. We will move on to sentencing, and we will be hopeful that the court will allow for some much-needed grace moving forward. And finally, the family won't have to deal with the bumbling Latah County prosecution team.
Honestly, knowing what we know now, can we blame the Goncalves family for being disgusted? Let's set aside all the past issues, past grievances, and concerns about a fair trial, because we're not going to have that, and just walk a minute in their shoes and understand that their daughter was attacked in the middle of the night while she was asleep by an armed assailant. Not only was she attacked by an armed assailant, she was attacked by somebody she didn't even know. And if she did know him, we weren't aware of it. I've said in the past we should give them some grace given what they're going through. A lot of y'all disagreed with it based off their actions and their words in interviews. But now that a lot of that's out of the way and out of the window, I mean, really, is that changing anything? I understand completely why they're upset and they're aggravated. They believe justice is a particular type of sentence. And that sentence was pulled from them. That sentence was pulled from the community. A lot of people feel some type of way about it, and I get it. Were they wanting vengeance? Were they wanting justice? It's not necessarily my call to make. In the past, I said it does seem like they are more interested in vengeance and justice because we didn't have a fair trial. We didn't have any of the answers. Now the only answer we have is the who. We still don't know the why or the how. I get my takes on this particular story are upsetting a lot of people because I'm still not dived into some alternative situation. But from where I'm sitting, I'm going to take the man at his word. Because he's on record as saying he committed these crimes. All these crimes. Nobody forced him to. He wasn't coerced. He wasn't under any medicine. He wasn't in any type of situation like Richard Allen was in. That's the difference maker for me. I just have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that an individual who is innocent of a crime is going to take a deal that gives him life in prison. That just doesn't seem like a logical deal to take, especially when you consider life in prison versus the DP. What is the difference? There's no reduction in the sentence. There's no reduction in the charge. They're just taking the DP off the table, which is a whole other conversation about why are we even having if it's just going to be used as a bargaining chip. If the DP is reserved for the worst of the worst, which I believe it should be, I don't think we should just be throwing that at anyone and everyone. How is this individual not the worst of the worst? That doesn't make sense to me.
Wow. Michael J. Brown, what do you think when you hear that statement from this grieving and understandably angry family?
Julie, there's no right or wrong. These are families who lost their loved ones, so there's nothing they can say that's wrong, and I understand that part of it. Let's remember, Ann Taylor, the defense attorney, did a great job. She advocated for her client. She was zealous. She made some real good motions. She had the matter moved to a different venue. She did what she's supposed to do. But on the other side of this, the prosecution, they just secured a plea, 4 convictions, guarantee life in jail, and not have to put the families through the ordeal. And you and I know, Julie, when I say ordeal, that's an understatement of going to trial. This fellow will spend the rest of his living life in jail. I really do think the prosecution has secured a victory. As much as you can get a victory, I think that they did what they were supposed to do here.
Excellent analysis. Michael J. Brown, thank you so much for all of that. So fortunate to have you with us.
So will we get answers? Will we get some sort of understanding? Will the state make this a requirement for this plea that'll go through right before they do the sentencing? At this point, given how this entire case was shrouded in mystery, I almost feel like it's warranted. I almost feel like that is something that's needed. We don't have any of these answers. We don't know anything. All we know now is who committed the crime, where did the crime happen, and who were the victims. And that's just not enough for a lot of people. In a lot of ways, that doesn't even satisfy me. I mean, even if we don't get the motive in this situation, at the very least, I would like to understand how he picked these 4 individuals. And we'll see if we get any of these answers at sentencing. But if you enjoy this and a more fair, open conversation, maybe check one of these videos out. Y'all be safe now.